When most people think about Stellar's XLM token, the picture that comes to mind is usually this essential bridge asset.
Mm.
Something specifically designed for making cross-border payments super fast and really cheap. That's definitely the narrative you hear a lot. So today, our mission is to really dig into that. We're going to look closely at how the Stellar network actually works using the material you brought. We want to explore some of the maybe less discussed realities that might challenge those common ideas, pull out the key insights for you. And honestly, as we started looking, this kind of surprising question popped up from the sources. Is XLM maybe less about being technically essential for moving value and perhaps more about, well, something else like funding the Stellar Development Foundation? It's intriguing, right? So let's start right there. That common belief XLM is crucial, absolutely vital for moving money on Stellar. Central to the whole thing. Is that really the full picture?
Yeah, that's definitely the popular perception. And it's a strong one. But when you actually unpack the details in the sources, it gets a bit more complex. The reality is, contrary to that belief, you don't strictly need XLM to send value across the Stellar network. Not for the main transfer itself, anyway.
Okay, wait. How does that work then?
Well, the Stellar protocol itself is quite flexible. It supports something called custom assets. Think of these as tokens issued by regulated financial institutions. They call them anchors.
Hmm.
And these tokens are backed by real-world things. Like you could have a token for US dollars, maybe USDC, or one for euros. Even stuff like loyalty points or securities, potentially.
Oh, okay. So like stable coins or tokenized assets running on Stellar.
Exactly. And the key thing is these custom assets, they can be sent directly from one person to another, peer-to-peer, without XLM really getting involved in the actual value part of the transfer.
No XLM needed at all.
Well, there are tiny exceptions. You do need a minuscule amount of XLM for the network transaction fee, like 0.00001 XLM. Super small. And you need a small amount to maintain a minimum balance in your account. It's a spam prevention thing, mostly.
Okay. Fees and account minimums. Got it.
Right. And even Stellar's own built-in decentralized exchange, the DEX, it's designed to let you trade these custom assets directly. Say you want to trade that Euro token for USDC. If someone else has put up an offer, you can often do that directly ERT to USDC, no XLM in the middle.
Assuming there's liquidity for that pair, of course.
Precisely. Liquidity is key there. So if you list XLM's actual technical jobs based on these sources, its transaction fees, those minimum balances, and yes, sometimes it can act as a bridge asset, but that bridging part isn't mandatory.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So it's not the central the engine we maybe thought, more like lubricant for the system.
That's a decent way to put it, yeah. It facilitates things, keeps the network running smoothly with fees and spam control, but it's not necessarily the cargo being moved, if that makes sense.
It does. So if the technical need isn't as absolute as perceived, it makes you think about the organization behind Stellar, right? The Stellar Development Foundation, the STF. What do the sources say about their relationship with XLM?
Right. That's a crucial part of the picture. The sources highlight that the SDF controls a massive treasury of XLM, billions of tokens. And importantly, these weren't mined like Bitcoin or earned gradually. They were basically created and allocated to the SDF right when the network launched, pre-mine, essentially.
Okay, a huge pre-allocated stash. What do they do with it?
The SDF uses it for various things, as outlined in the materials. They sell or distribute XLM periodically to fund their activities. That includes giving out grants to projects building on Stellar, forming partnerships, funding core protocol development, marketing the network, and covering their own operating costs. Salaries, admin, that sort of thing.
Standard practice for many blockchain foundations, right? Using the native token for funding.
It is quite common, yes. But the sources draw a connection here that's worth noting. Given that XLM isn't strictly required for the primary function of value transfer, as we just discussed, these sales of XLM become a very significant source of capital for the SDF. Its utility is more around those gatekeeper functions, fees, reserves, the optional bridge. So this opens the door to considering XLM not just as a technical utility token, but also, perhaps significantly, as a financial asset used to fund the foundation and ecosystem growth.
Right. The value isn't solely derived from its use in every transaction, but also from its role in funding the people building the network.
Exactly. It's a dual role, you could say.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. If it's not functionally required for moving most value, why does XLM have market value? Where did that come from?
That's the million-dollar question, or maybe the billion XLM question. And the sources suggest the answer is a bit blurry. You have the public narrative. XLM is needed to move money across currencies. It's the bridge. But then you have the technical reality we discussed. The network can often do this just fine using those issued assets directly. USDC to UART, for example. Even the pathfinding feature on Stellar, which finds the best exchange route, doesn't have to use XLM if a better direct path exists.
So there's a gap between the story and the text sometimes.
There can be. So why the value? The sources point to a couple of things. One is clearly speculative demand. People buy it expecting the price to go up, believing in the project or the narrative or just market dynamics. That's crypto for you.
Sure, speculation plays a huge role everywhere.
Absolutely. But the other potential explanation, which is less talked about, is tied to what we just discussed about the SDF. The perception that XLM has utility, that it is needed, helps justify its existence and its ongoing sale by the foundation. Those sales bring in real money liquidity, operating capital, which is essential for the SDF's work.
So the perceived utility supports the market value, which enables the funding, which supports the network's development. It's a bit circular.
It has that potential feedback loop, yes. And again, this isn't necessarily presented as shady or unethical in the sources, but it does highlight the need for real transparency about XLM's actual role versus its marketed role. How much does the network truly depend on its widespread use versus just its market price?
That makes sense. Let's circle back to that specific bridge asset narrative then. It's such a prominent part of Stellar's identity.
It really is. And to be clear, XLM can act as a bridge asset. The sources confirm that. Imagine you have, say, a token for Mexican pesos, MXNT, and want Canadian dollars, CADT, but there's no direct MXNT CAT market on the Stellar DEX with enough liquidity.
Right, nobody's actively trading those two directly in sufficient volume.
Exactly. In that case, XLM could serve as the intermediary. You might trade MXNT for XLM and then XLM for CADT. That's a valid use case.
Okay, so it could be a bridge.
It can be, but the crucial distinction the sources make is that this role is conditional. It's not fundamental or mandatory. In many, perhaps most, high-volume cases involving major currencies, like USD to euros, the network might facilitate a direct conversion. If anchors or market makers are providing direct URT to USDC liquidity in the order book, the system can just use that. No need for XLM in the middle.
So the bridge function is really only needed when direct liquidity is missing.
Correct. It's optional and totally market dependent. It's not something baked into the protocol as a requirement for every cross-asset payment. If direct asset-to-asset liquidity exists, which is often the goal for major corridors, the need for XLM as that specific bridge kind of evaporates.
Okay, putting all this together, what does this nuanced view mean for people actually using or building on Stellar? Is this a problem? Or just something to know?
Well, the sources suggest it's mostly the latter, something important to understand clearly. There's nothing inherently wrong, as mentioned, with a foundation using its native token for funding. Many successful projects do. The key, emphasized in the material, is transparency and whether it matches what users expect.
Right. Manage expectations.
Exactly. So the main takeaways for anyone listening, users, developers, maybe even regulators looking at this space are pretty clear from the sources. One, Stellar, the network, doesn't technically need XLM to be the thing transmitting the core value in many cases. Two, the network can work very well using just those fiat-backed tokens or other issued assets. And three, the value of XLM seems to be driven significantly by speculation and its role in funding the SDF, maybe more so than by its indispensable day-to-day use within the network's core payment function.
So the message is be critical of the narratives.
Yeah. If the story being told is that XLM is absolutely essential for every single global payment on Stellar, these sources suggest that might be an oversimplification. The reality is more nuanced.
And knowing that reality, knowing these actual dynamics, is crucial if you're making decisions whether to build, invest, or just use the platform. It definitely changes how you might look at the token's utility proposition. Okay, so let's try and distill the core insight from this deep dive. XLM, definitely useful. It plays important supporting roles, network fees, spam control via minimum balances, and yes, it can be a bridge asset when needed. But based on our sources, these roles seem supportive rather than fundamentally central or indispensable for the primary job of transferring value on Stellar, which brings us right back to that big question that the sources seem to raise. Is XLM's primary function, in practice, more about funding the Stellar Development Foundation and the ecosystem than it is about being technically essential for the network's core operations?
And the sources lean towards maybe. It's not a definitive yes or no, but the evidence points towards that possibility being quite strong.
And that maybe really matters, doesn't it? Especially when you're talking about trust and transparency in this space.
It absolutely does.
So the final thought to leave you with, thinking about all this, If XLM's role is potentially more nuanced than the simplest story suggests, what does that make you think about the true utility and the actual value drivers of other crypto tokens, or even other blockchain networks entirely? It definitely encourages us all to look past the initial marketing slogans and dig a little deeper, wouldn't you say?